This is the Amp Hour Podcast. Released November 5th, 2017. Episode 366. Loopback. Welcome to the Amp Hour. I'm Chris Gamble of Contextual Electronics, and this week I am solo. Don't worry, I'm not going to impose my terrible monologue onto you, but I am going to give you a little bit of context on what we've got going on here. Me and Dave couldn't record this week. He's busy working on his Kickstarter video and getting that meter all finished up with David too. And so I thought, well, we've done 365 shows now. That's one day per. If you did one per day for a year, you could listen to all of the Amp Hour. And that seems like some kind of weird numerology type thing. It's not, it's not anything more than 350 or 150 or whatever. But interesting note, someone mentioned that, so we thought that was kind of fun. And so I thought I would actually loop us back to episode 1, not to feel embarrassed, because I definitely do, but because, I don't know, we've come a long way. It's been 7+ years now, and so we've got new listeners since then. We've had a lot of stuff happen in our lives since then. I think both of Dave's kids have been born in that time. Dave's now self-employed as a YouTuber. I've changed jobs like 3 times, including once for myself. I moved cities, and then me and Dave finally met this year. So, lots of stuff has happened, and hopefully, we'll keep recording for many more years. But it's it's interesting to go back and kind of look at where we've been once in a while. I mean, obviously we mention it on the show as well. When this was recorded, so this first episode, I think, was released August of 2010. So yeah, that would be more than 7 years ago. So back then I was working at Keithley, Dave was still working at Altium, and the whole origin story, the reason people ask us about this all the time, I had responded to a post on Reddit. That's how this whole thing started. I had responded to a post on Reddit, and someone asked if there was any audio podcasts. There were not, so I recorded one, and it was terrible, and I will not impose that one upon you. But instead, Dave actually heard it, and then he had always wanted to do a radio show, and so he called me up, and he said, why don't we try this together? And that is what you're about to listen to. It's not great audio. It's not it's not really great anything, but it's the first podcast. You'll notice some things, though, right? So some things are thematically very similar. We've been accused of saying the same thing for the past 7 years, and some of it you'll hear is very similar. So you don't have to listen to it, obviously, but I thought it'd be an interesting kind of retrospective after 365 shows. So yeah, 7+ years later, it's kind of crazy when you think about it. Yeah, I hope you enjoy it. If you have any thoughts on, you can always post them on our subreddit, which is another thing that we've done since then. Obviously, we met on Reddit, so it seemed apropos to finally get onto Reddit. Some people may remember the ill-fated Hacker News style server that we had that would, it would crash every 2 days or so it was never really running. But yeah, so if you want to leave a comment over on our subreddit, that's great. If you want to leave a comment in the in the comment section of this post, you can do that. If you want to go and look at the old themes, the old website themes, classic. The first one looked like a electronics bench, and the second one had like the Loeb logo, and then we've had this one for a while. That's about it, I guess. So here it is. And we had old music too. Sorry, I should mention that, which was written by me. We had older music. I won't oppose that on you either. So that's it, I suppose. Onto the show. This is episode 1 of the Amp Hour. We'd love to hear what you think about it, and we're looking forward to future episodes.
Hi, I'm Dave Jones from the EEV blog, and with me is Chris Gamble from Chris Gamble's Analog Life. How you doing, Chris?
Good, Dave. How are you doing?
Fantastic. We've decided to do an off-the-cuff radio show. I'm not sure why, but here we are, doing a live radio show. Well, it's not live, really. It's pre-recorded, but we are recording this as if it's a live show, and I am doing this from Sydney, Australia, here in my study. I'm not in the EEV blog lab, and Chris is in Cleveland, Ohio. Is that right, Chris?
That's right. Sitting in my basement. That's actually where I did my first podcast a couple weeks ago.
That's right. You had some sort of podcast electronics learning type thing.
Yeah.
How was that going?
It went pretty well. It was a little dry to start with. I mean, I ended up starting out real basic, and if you go all the way back to the beginning, it gets a little rough. So and also you got a good forum with the having video because you can explain things. So it's a little tougher with just audio, but I think our off the cuff talking about electronics and the real world kind of thing here might suit it a little better. So we'll see how this works out.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's an electronics radio show, by the way, and
good point.
Actually, yes, and it has no name at this stage. It's the No Name Electronics Show because we're just not creative enough to come up with a really catchy name. So yeah, we'll open this up to people out there. If you've got a suggestion for the name of this electronics radio show, then by all means, send it in. Probably on the forum.
Yeah, forum's good.
So we don't have a dedicated website set up, but the idea is we'll give this thing a try, see if people like a electronics radio show, and if they do, well, we'll continue to do it, and we'll set up a proper website, and we'll do all that, and we'll set up like an iTunes podcast as well.
Oh, is that how your readers get most of their info, through the iTunes or through other stuff?
Well, I've probably got about 1,500 people who subscribe to the podcast, and probably about 60% of those do it through iTunes.
Wow, that's
so
pretty
they
good.
Watch, they download my video through iTunes, and it's quite large. The file sizes there are like 40 meg or something, 50 meg for a 10-15 minute show or something like that, so it's quite large. But I guess the idea with audio is that a lot of people just don't have the time to sit there and actually watch a video show. So I know that my drive time rant is fairly popular. There's a lot of people that hate it, but bugger them. There's as usual, there's some people that like it. So I was thinking maybe that would be better suited to a co-hosted radio show. Instead of listening to me rant on, you can have at least two people rant on.
That's right, yeah.
So here we go. We've got Chris, who runs Chris Gammell's Analog Life blog website. If you haven't seen it, it's really quite good, and Chris is into analogy type stuff. And I, of course, do the electronics engineering video blog, and which is all pretty just random stuff. There's some analog stuff in there, digital, and there's rants and all sorts of things, but I'm sure most of you listening to that already know that.
Let's hope so.
Unless this show gets like wildly popular.
I don't know about that one.
Well, yeah.
That's a good question though. How big do you think the hobbyist market is? I always wonder about that kind of thing. The hobbyist or even the professional market. Like who might even put this on during the day or in a car? I don't even know about that.
Well, there's of course the hobbyist market was dying, 5, 6, 7 years ago, but now it's this hacker maker /
I love it.
Of market. When you have 150,000 people turn up to that maker fair in the US or something like that.
Don't remind me. I'm actually I got an event this week. There's actually the one up in Detroit this weekend, and I'm only a 3-hour drive from Detroit, but I can't go, and I'm just so sad that I can't make it up there. It just seems like it's gonna be such a great event, especially in Detroit. I don't know if you've read anything about that one. It looks amazing.
No, I haven't. Is that like a standard maker fair? Does it go around the country? Does it?
Yeah. There's only a couple events. There's some smaller ones out in Providence, and I think there's some other ones out in California, different towns, but this is the first time in Detroit, and it looks like, they're kind of targeting it. They're calling it from Motor City to Maker City. That's what they call it.
Neat.
Yeah.
Nice.
It looks like and it's at the Henry Ford Museum, and so they got all the, all the older innovation with automobiles and, 60s when it was really cranking around in Detroit and stuff like that, and earlier, of course, but now the city's kind of dead. I mean, there's no really denying that, and so they're trying to bring the maker mentality to it, and there's a ton of uptake. That's the amazing thing. There's hacker spaces all over the place there, and actually a lot of, with all the Michigan Tech and Michigan and Michigan State, I believe. Forgive me, I don't really know a lot of colleges up there, but just such a huge contingent of people that are already doing this kind of thing that it seemed to really fit.
Excellent. I had no idea. I thought it was just based in, where is it, Silicon Valley? Where do they usually hold it? Where's the big one?
San Francisco is the main one.
San Fran, yeah, just outside of San Fran somewhere. But they get huge crowds. So I don't know how many people are going to turn up to ones in other cities, but it's very popular. So I'm sure they'll get, at least 10,000 people show up or something. Oh, yeah. So
I've been telling everyone about
it. I can't imagine doing anything like that here in Australia. I'd love to, for there to be something like that. But we just don't have the mass of people here. I just can't see it working.
Well, the amazing thing is it's not just that it's like you need a mass of people. It's also that it promotes itself, where you have this event and you promote it as like a family thing too, because it really is. It's very family based, and then you get all this exposure for children where they learn how to solder, they see all these awesome events, and then you have a whole new contingent. Like, after this weekend, Detroit is going to have, say there are 10,000 people there and half of them are kids, you're going to have 5,000 kids that want to do engineering now. And I can't think of anything better that, for engineering education or science education. That's out of this world right there. You're not trying
Absolutely. It's just...
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, it's just incredible. Oh, yeah, we're dealing with this Skype thing. We've got a silly issue because we're both using Skype here at both ends, and if we both talk at the same time over each other, the Skype connection actually drops out. It just aborts for a second, and that's really disconcerting here in the headphones. So if you hear us do something retarded like that, then
or if you have any suggestions, that's also welcome. If you know any other programs that... Skype's great because it's free, but if you know of any other programs, be sure to let us know.
Absolutely, but these hacker maker fairs, they're just incredible. I'm not sure how many people actually do, that sort of hacker maker thing here in Australia. Maybe there's a whole, secret society out there just begging for some maker show to, somebody to put it on. The thought actually crossed my mind of me actually trying to run one or something. Just the other day, actually, I was thinking, geez, But, I have no idea how to get something like that started. It requires contacts and a lot of money. And
I never knew it was actually the O'Reilly people that started all this. I knew that Make was run by some larger corporation, but I didn't realize it was O'Reilly Publishing. The guys that do, like Linux in a handshell, all the in a handshell programming books.
Oh, I didn't know about that at all. I have no idea who O'Reilly Publishing is. So there you go. I guess it's a geeky thing.
Yeah, if you ever see, you ever seen any of those programming books with like the really well looking animals drawn on the cover? There's like different animals for every book. Yeah,
I think I may have crossed paths with one of those once, but okay. So they're the ones who run Make.
Yeah.
I think didn't Make buy out? Oh, it's on the tip of my tongue. They bought out one of the electronics magazines.
I didn't know about that.
No, sorry, that was. Elector being bought out by... No, I think Elector magazine bought out Circuit Cellar. I think that's what it was. Sorry, that's what I'm thinking of. Yeah. So Circuit Cellar hasn't changed as a result, but it ultimately might because it was actually bought out by them. So
I was never exposed to Circuit Cellar before. I went to ESC in Chicago, and I had never I had heard of Circuit Cellar. I never read it, though, and I didn't realize it's an embedded magazine. I always thought it was... you hear Circuit Cellar, you think... I always think like discrete kind of stuff on a board, but I was surprised it's an embedded magazine.
Yeah, I think maybe that's how it possibly started out. Steve Cicera, I don't know how to pronounce his last name, it's rather convoluted, but he's the one who actually started it. And I think I didn't read it way back in the day because we didn't get that here in Australia back in the 80s. I think it started late 80s or something like that. And but it I guess eventually merged into this embedded magazine. So, and it's a really quite a good one.
Yeah.
And they have all sorts of design contests and things like that. Or they used to. I haven't seen a new design contest for quite some time, but they were famous for their design contests.
Oh, really?
There's a few guys out there who have made full on careers out of winning these design contests in Circuit Cellar.
Wow, that's like the eating contest of the circuit world, huh? It's like
yeah, exactly. How many hot dogs can you stuff down in in a minute? Yeah, how many contests can you win? And there were serious prizes, serious money. 5,000, 10,000.
I saw that actually the Make magazine guys, they're doing that too. They've been pairing up with other I think magazine people. I'm not sure who it was, like Design News or EE Times, EDM, one of those guys. Yep. So I don't know. It's cool. I like them. I've never had the gumption to enter one, but maybe in the future, Yeah,
absolutely. Those, I think I saw one of their design contests or something. They're only offering like 1,000 or 2,000. It's not a huge first prize. Maybe they're being a bit skint there. I don't know what
you do it for the glory,
turnover and revenue. I suspect they're doing pretty darn well.
Yeah,
so. Yeah, absolutely. So, what are we going to talk about on this blog, Chris? Any idea?
Well, you told me not to tell you. I don't know. So, totally off the cuff.
It's totally off the cuff. We weren't going to tell each other what. We were just going to throw ideas into the hat and then we discuss them because we don't want some scripted, rehearsed blog. That'll probably come across as just being a bit lame. So,
yeah. Actually, one thing I was going to ask you about, because you mentioned iTunes before, was just kind of, I don't know if you've ever talked about it on your video blog, just your take on Apple. Yeah, I saw recently that they're like either the second biggest now or like one of the biggest chip buyers in the world, and it's just like, I know people love talking about Apple. I don't really like talking about them from a software perspective, but it's just interesting to me about where they've gone, and I just want to know your take. Yeah,
from the electronics design industry point of view, Apple is the number one customer that all the chip makers want to. Well, it's a double-edged sword. They want to have their products in Apple because they're so popular, but they're so demanding. I've heard they will absolutely demand that you lock up your production lines just for them, and the secrecy issues and all the other rigmarole which goes with dealing with Apple and Steve Jobs' personality.
Yes.
A lot of the manufacturers, there's actually a shortage at the moment of some capacitors or some other issue, and that's being blamed a lot on not necessarily Apple, but these major customers who absolutely demand. They'll actually bring out a new product, and then they'll demand that you give them all of your stock. Everything that comes off the production line. So all the other customers just get booted down the line. So I think I posted that on the forum somewhere, or I think I tweeted that there's some shortage in capacitors again or something, just like back in the 90s there was the famous tantalum capacitor shortage. I think it was the 90s. But that can those sort of things can happen. One customer just soaking up soaking up the whole lot.
Well, that's
crazy.
I think it's a couple of things too. I don't think it's just the one customer thing. I think it's also the fact that there was a recession, and it was like September of 2009, something like that. Yeah. Whenever that, or no, it was 2008, I guess. And everybody started to slow down. They said, "All right, we're not going to make any more products, but sell everything in the backlog." So they sold everything. They're not making anything new. And then when the economy picked back up, they all said, "Hey, we need new products. We need more of the old products, even." And they said, "Sorry, we can't do anything." First off, we fired all our workers. Second off, we don't have any back stock, and third off, we can't start a fab back up that quick. We just shut down an entire fab. So there's these really macro things that affect a lot of people, and
absolutely
it's crazy how it really affected everyone, and it's still resonating back and forth. It's almost like a control loop, really. Like you cut out one thing, and the whole thing starts to oscillate, and that's what's happening now. We'll probably have an oversupply in the near future, and then back again. But like I said, I don't know how much we want to talk about industry and supply stuff. That gets a little boring, but it affects people.
It does. I've got a few industry news items here, and so you want to get into some news items?
Oh yeah, sure. Why not, man?
All right. Well, let's hit it. I just get news emailed to me every day, and Freescale, who manufacture microcontrollers, among other things, they're $7.6 billion in debt. But that's not unusual in the industry. You'll find that most of the semiconductor makers are, even though the semiconductor industry is actually on a mini boom at the moment, most of them can't even keep up with sales and things like that. There's all these semiconductor companies in massive debt. And Freescale only made a loss of $538 million this second quarter. So,
yay!
Yay! A round of applause for
right.
Freescale. There you go. So,
yeah, it's tough, man. Like those things are getting so big, like the fabs and everything. I mean, one piece of equipment might cost you $50 million. And it's just to the point where, actually, you mentioned Jerry Ellsworth before.
Yeah, Ellsworth, yep.
Yeah, and she made her own chips, right? I mean, she's made MOSFETs in her garage or wherever she made them. But,
in a garage, yeah.
But it's just to the point where you can't make anything without tons of money. And so it's reassuring to see people trying it. I mean, it really is, especially for transistors and stuff that's so important. But, man, just some of that, like $50 million for a single piece of equipment, that's outrageous. And then you got to put hundreds of them in there, and you start running up the bill pretty fast.
Yeah, and that's why these companies are all in debt, because they've lashed out on these fab plans before the financial crisis hit, and they're just or poorly managed, or something like that, and yeah, they're just in massive debt. So I expect to maybe see some more consolidation in the market, more companies merging if that's possible. There's just been so many mergers over the last 5 years or something like that. It's just crazy. But,
and they start getting so big too that it's just almost untenable to try and talk to these guys, because then you have the Apples talking to them, and you're like, "Hey, can I get some parts?" They're like, sorry, they're all going to Apple."
Yeah, bugger off. Thank you very much.
Yeah, see you later.
It's nuts. And there's companies that are still trying to go public as well. There's a couple of semiconductor makers out there, and they're trying to get shareholder investment return by going public. Well, good luck with that. It's just crazy.
Yeah.
And other interesting news. I was reading the Microchip's the company. I was reading their financial statement for last year. I don't want to go into industry financials, but they actually itemised the number of development tools sold, which is really quite fascinating. Yeah, and it was 45,000 tools for the last quarter. So there you go. It gives you an insight into how many development tools a company like that actually ship.
So that's good. Then you could just tell everyone out there, you got a 1 in 45,000 chance of getting a kit. There you go. And hopefully,
exactly.
Hopefully you're part of the free slice. Hopefully you're getting a free kit for some reason or another.
Well, now that raises the cynical part of me. Thinks that this new TI Launchpad development. I'm sure you've heard of that. Yes, the $4.30 FedExed to your door development kit. If you haven't heard about that, TI are trying to corner the entry-level microcontroller market by offering a complete development tool, including free C compiler and third-party C compiler and everything else, shipped to your door for $4.30.
It's a good deal.
Ridiculous.
It is, but it's like, what are you going to do with it then? Like I've read about it, and I've read about it, comparing it to Arduino and comparing it even to PIC and everything else, and it's it's a kind of a hobbled process. I mean, I think it was on your forum too. It's kind of a hobbled processor, and it's not compatible with Arduino, and there's a lot of complaints about it. But still, it's like $4. You're going to get a lot of people just saying, "Well, I'll take it."
Well, absolutely. Well, I know for a fact that they manufactured at least 10,000 of them in the first run.
Wow.
So I'm sure they will do more than 45,000 of those to match Microchip. Now, as I was saying, the cynical person in me might think that they did this just as a stunt so that they could put that sort of sales figures for development tools into their financial returns. So. Yeah. But that's just being a bit... no, surely not. They wouldn't do that.
Oh, no, right? No. Who would? No one would ever lie on a balance sheet. Never, ever, ever.
No. It's all about supporting the hobbyist and getting your chips out there.
That's right.
Yeah, It is a brilliant marketing ploy. I mean, they're practically giving it away. And even to Australia, I ordered 3 of them, and I just got them last week, and they FedExed 3 of them to my door for $12. You know, it's just
that's pretty good. Yeah, so, it's kind of the.
But
have you ever heard of that? The guy that wrote The Long Tail, Chris Anderson. Have you ever heard of that book? It's called Free. I believe it's called Free.
No, I haven't.
You know, I keep going back to it, and it is a book basically about the free economy, it's called, you know, like the economy, free economy, and how that's the new model because of the internet. People expect things to be free. They say, give me things first. They're used to the Googles of the world that have been giving them these unbelievable apps for nothing. They're used to not iPhones, but like a lot of the app markets getting certain things for free, or hardware even getting things for free, and how that's an actual like recognized business model now. Give it to them first, and then hopefully they'll come back and they'll like what you have, and they'll develop with it and all that other stuff. And I haven't read the book yet, but it's on my list of things to get in there. It's just an amazing model because. How do you go pitch that if you're trying to sell this as a business? What we're going to do is give everything away first.
Exactly. Well, there's actually nothing really new in that concept. In the electronics industry, companies been giving away data books back in the old day. Some of these data books would cost like, $50 or $100 to print or something. They're so massive. They were like 1,500 pages, and they would give those away for free. And I think some companies still do. They give away data sheets, and they're so I guess the concept's not new, but with the new Apples of the world, the other companies, Google and ones like that, they're just giving everything away, and it's just it's the old carrot and stick kind of, you can catch the carrot, but it's a very small carrot, and you hope you're going to come in and reel you in and buy some more of those carrots. So
have you tried out your board yet?
No, I haven't. I haven't fired it up yet. I was going to do an unboxing on the EEV blog because I know people hate unboxings and I hate them myself. So I was going to do one just to. I was going to do a rather unusual unboxing of it. So there you go.
You can have like one of those snake, like a peanut can where the snake pops out and
the snake pops out.
Oh, and it's empty. $4 and it's empty. Sorry.
30 cents and all you get's a cardboard box.
Yep.
Yeah. Oh. Goodness. Other news, I got a new computer at work.
Oh, yeah.
And my first time using Windows 7. But the amazing thing was, it's a brand new Dell. It's like a Dell Precision 3500 or something, real whiz-bang, super fast Xenon processor machine or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm just not Linux Penguin geeky enough to keep up with that sort of thing these days. But the amazing thing is that it came with not only a serial port, believe it or not, but a parallel port.
This is a desktop or a...
This is a desktop. A desktop. I was absolutely shocked. I didn't know that... I thought they dropped at least the parallel port many years ago. I thought it was... you virtually couldn't buy a new main board that had a parallel port on it.
Yeah. That's... I mean... You're not using it for printing or anything, though.
No, exactly. The old parallel port projects, because I used to be really big into parallel port projects and things like that, but I haven't used one for years. But the serial port on a machine is still very handy.
Yeah,
there's still
definitely.
A lot of, there's a lot of development tools out there and things that, will only work with serial ports.
How about Hyperterminal? How long has that been around? I mean, that must have been with Windows 3.1, and that's still, the output, the standard output for a lot of micro boards,
Absolutely. Everyone's still using the ANSI 9600, 8N1 sort of interface into Hyperterminal. And
that stuff sticks around, and like you love talking about test equipment. I work in test equipment, talking about like GPIB. I mean, how is that still around?
Oh, I know. It's just incredible there. You can still buy new gear, from the likes of Agilent and still got GPIB on it. It's just unbelievable. So, yeah. Does anyone still use GPIB? I guess they do in
industry, but
yeah. Well, in my last job, we were still using GPIB and Windows 3.1, and that was only 3 years ago. So.
Yeah, it sticks around.
Well, that's the thing. Well, the thing with Windows 3.1 is that it boots on a modern machine. It boots practically instantly. Within, a second. So if you've got a bit of, we had gear which we'd roll out on trolleys on industrial computers out into the production line, and these things had to boot, well, it'd be an advantage to boot real quick.
Yeah.
And Windows 3.1 still did it. And the good thing was is it didn't have big swap files and things, so you could just switch the machine off without shutting it down, going through that silly Windows shutdown process. So you could just switch the machine off and you didn't corrupt your hard drive or your files, and it just suited the task really perfectly. So I'm sure there's still other people out there using Windows 3.1.
Yeah, I've written about that kind of thing before too. You don't really always think about it, but even the MSP 430s of today, that kind of thing goes into like a thermostat or something like that. That's going to be around.
Yep.
That might be around in 15 years. And how do you really design for that kind of thing? I had an article up on here. Bob Peace, Bob Peace, the one of the analog gurus, formerly from National, and
absolutely,
he's written about long-term stability. And he actually is talking about how it's not that important for him because a lot of the it's really on the big products that they spec it out. So if you have an op amp, they don't care how much it drifts over time. But
over 10 years, yeah.
Right, but that actually affects a lot of things because, we have a very throwaway culture, but in industry, like real industrial environments, that kind of stuff matters. So if you're using a 3.1 computer, Windows 3.1, you might care that your op amp has drifted, 5,000 ppm, something like that.
Yeah, well, absolutely. I mean, I've had issues not so much on the drift side of things, but just on the supply side of things, getting customers, because I've been involved in designing projects for the military and things like that, and really you have to guarantee 10, 15 year lifespans on actually supporting these products. So you've actually got to try and get written statements from the suppliers saying, yes, we will still support this chip in 10 or 15 years' time, and it's like extracting teeth. It's just,
the interesting thing is...
You can eventually do it.
The interesting thing is, like, there's actually businesses built upon that. Have you ever heard of, like, Rochester Electronics? You ever heard of them?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, they actually... they make a business out of that. They'll take a chip, and they'll replicate it for you because it's not made anymore. And so they're... And so it's either that or you take your chances with the China market, and you're probably 75% of the time you're getting these counterfeit parts that just say if you're looking for an LM741, assuming that ever went obsolete, it probably won't. But you're just getting a chip now that says LM741, and it's actually inside it's it's a LM317, and you're getting a power regulator, and you're up a creek.
Exactly. There's a lot of that grey market stuff going around, and that's the risk of buying on the components on the grey market from these huge Hong Kong, one-stop shop, one-hung low shops. It's that's a real advantage. So that's it. Well, that's the advantage of buying from Mouser, DigiKey, and Farnell's, and authorized distributors and stuff like that. You're pretty much guaranteed.
Have you ever gotten any Chinese counterfeit parts?
Not for a very long time, no. We had transistors back in the early 90s. We had some fake power transistors. But no, I really haven't been caught out by that. I try and avoid the grey market if possible.
It's really...
usually, a lot of the products I design, cost isn't really an issue because we're not manufacturing, 100,000 or 1 million of these items. We're going to manufacture, 500 or something like that. So, it's sort of a different market.
Yeah. It's just interesting to me that, there's such a need for certain parts that people will go to that extent, and sometimes I don't know about how the power transistor worked out for you, but you get a part that doesn't have any silicon inside it. You just have a TO220 package, and you might have a little fire on your hands.
And with the power transistor thing, that's interesting because they were actually genuine silicon in there, but they were undersized. So and that's important for a power transistor because you buy a power transistor expecting it to dissipate 50 watts or something, and they put these tiny little dies in there, and they can only handle 5 watts. So you put them in your product, and they might work for a week, but then they fail when your product gets out in the field. So the cost isn't just the cost of that part and fitting it; it's cost cost of going out to the field and actually repairing it.
Yeah.
And which is a major thing, really.
Yeah, it really is, because then you hurt your reputation and everything, too.
Your reputation dies, and the service cost is just,
Oh, yeah.
it's just through the roof. So, use grey market components at your own risk.
Have you ever looked at the inside of a power transistor, like the layout of one before?
They're just a really big ass die with. I haven't looked at the actual die. I haven't looked under a microscope, but you saw the top can off it, and you can actually see the huge die in there with the big bond wires. I have nice big thick ones in these power transistors, and
I had actually never looked in. I had never looked inside of one, but I had taken a seminar at one point, and I think it was International Rectifier or someone like that. They had a sheet about it, and I didn't realize that power transistors aren't actually... I always thought it was like one huge transistor, like really large features or whatever like that, but it's actually more often it's a lot of transistors sitting in parallel, and they play a lot of really cool games with that stuff. So I don't know how many of the people that usually watch your show are doing like silicon design, but that stuff is just... I mean, the tricks they play to get more work out of the same kind of... process topologies, like the same silicon levels and everything. It's just amazing what they do with that stuff.
Oh, absolutely. I have no real idea about the silicon level manufacturing industry. That's not something we have here in Australia, and I've never really been involved in that. But yeah, some of the stuff they do, my hat's off to them. It's just amazing what they can do on silicon. It's just a whole different ball game to just the macro level electronics design. It's totally different.
So what about your design in general? Are you doing a lot of... when you're doing designs these days, are you doing a lot of transistor-based, not obviously on a chip, but are you doing more discrete stuff or more bigger stuff? Like, I don't want to ask you too much about your work, but, even when you're doing hobby projects, are you doing a lot of Arduino kind of stuff? Or are you doing more, building like a transistor output stage, that kind of thing?
Oh no, I'm rarely doing just like a raw analog discrete thing. It usually always involves a micro and bunch of other specialized devices and things like that. So yeah, I don't do much discrete work. Just building up an audio amp or something doesn't really do it for me anymore. So yeah. I love all these specialized chips that come out now. I know it's a bit of a cop out to do something with a specialized chip, but they're just they're so tempting. You might get some a power monitor chip for $1 or something, and it's just whereas to do that before required a whole board of circuitry. It's just.
I saw one today that had a preamp actually integrated into it. It was like a preamp early stage, it had all the transistors, all these really nicely biased bipolar transistors, like in a preamp or before an op amp, and then actually went right into an op amp, and then it could drive this output stage. And so, yeah, I agree with you. Most of the time, unfortunately for analog type people, which sometimes is a lot more fun to play around the transistors. Some of those chips are just they're unbelievable, and they're tested however many cycles out and heat tested and temperature, like everything kind of tested you ever need and every data point you'd ever need on a data sheet. So I understand the temptation. It just
well, it's all about time to market, isn't it? If you're designing a product that is ultimately going to be taken to market, which is different from just dicking around with hobby stuff, then it's to use these off-the-shelf chips that are already proven and characterized, over temperature. It's just there really isn't any contest. It's in the end, it just all comes down to, can you buy the chip in quantity?
Oh yeah.
That's the main. You might be able to get it. They might have 5 in stock at Mouser or something, but that doesn't help you when you want to build 10,000 of them, and there's a 40-week lead time, sir. Thank you very much.
Yeah, that happens a lot these days. It's actually kind of interesting with the hobbyist, like where the hobbyist meets the industry side of things, because I never realized, I went basically straight into industry, and I do a little bit of hobbyist stuff on the side, but nothing that I can speak of to, enough projects to really get a good feel for it. And, some of the op amps I use, I saw you had a tweet the other day.
Yes.
About having an op amp be the most expensive piece of your design. Well, I have op amps that I'm using all the time that are $5, and sometimes that's the raw cost of an entire design that hobbyists are using, and I'm just blown away with some of the things that they're able to do, like even the Arduino kits and stuff like that. just the keeping the costs in mind is really tough, and either you got deep pockets or you're really being innovative about what kind of parts you use in your hobby designs to really get a lot out of them, get a lot of mileage.
Well, that's the thing. I'm working on a design at the moment. You could say it's a hobby design, but I do plan to take it into sale. It's going to be an open source hardware thing.
Nice.
I won't say what it is. Probably a few people on the forum might have heard me mention it before. But it's all about cost optimization and choosing the right parts that are A, available, and B, the lowest cost, and it changes your design. You go, right, I love that chip, it's only 10 cents, but I can't get it, so I'm going to have to use the 50-cent chip, and then that flows on and changes the rest of your design. And the number of times I've rehashed this design to try and shave 20 cents off the cost is just... it's just absolutely phenomenal.
Infuriating, really.
Well, because, ultimately, that's going to come out of my pocket. Because if I manufacture 1,000 of these and I can save $1 per unit, that's $1,000, in my pocket. Essentially. So, it's, so shaving cents off here and there and come out with innovative ways to avoid using a part and minimizing the number of parts and using a PCB as a front panel and, just doing all sorts of other little tricks in your design, you can bring the cost down a lot. But the hobbyist sort of, those Arduinos, they're really cheap because you don't have to worry about an external case or anything like that. You just manufacture the board and snap them off the panel, So there's a but if you want to make a product look good and things like that, then at the moment the most expensive part in my design is a little quad op amp, and it's a bottom of the range op amp. But
at least you get four of them. That's good.
Well, you get four for your $1.50. But it's a rail to rail precision op amp, and you've just it's crazy. Well, no, I lie. There is one more expensive thing, which is going to be the punched box. The box is actually only $1 for it, but to get 3 holes punched in it is another $2.70, sir. Thank you very much.
God. Those are some expensive holes right there.
Exactly. I'm thinking about actually building up a punch machine myself and actually just punching the damn holes out of the box because it is so expensive. So,
wow.
It's just it's crazy.
It's an interesting point you said about the trade-offs and stuff. And, you always see people asking about that kind of thing on forums and everywhere. Like, hey, I'm a student and I'm really trying to get into engineering. And what are the things I need to know or what do I have to look forward to? And that's one of the things that I always think about engineering is it's all about trade-offs. Sometimes you're going to have someone shouting in your ear, but you really got to kind of try and balance, well, if it needs more power, it's going to get hotter, but if it needs less power, I need a more expensive chip. And so that kind of balancing is kind of one of those like skills that you don't ever really hear about in school because it's always, sometimes it's project based, but if it's lab based, it's more like, well, here you have to do this, this, and this, and this. But if it's project based, when you get into more project based kind of things like how you're designing that item, you really have to start playing around and optimizing things, and that's a big deal, Oh yeah, that's a huge aspect of engineering, which all these beginners coming out of university and whatnot, they just have no actual clue about. And and there's a famous saying in engineering. It's engineering is the art of building something with stuff you can get. And it's I've never heard that one.
And it's but it's not only stuff you can get; it's stuff you can get at the right price. And there's a whole art in just you would be amazed at the amount of work that goes into producing just an Arduino board or something like that. That's optimized down in cost. And, Like if say you can get a 10K resistor for 2 cents, but you can get a 5K resistor for 5 cents, right? Well, if you put two 10Ks in parallel, you have a 5K resistor, but now you just saved $0.01 cent. And if you're making 1 million of them, that's $10,000. So maybe you want to do that. Exactly, and it's there's another aspect of electronics design is BOM optimization, parts optimization. Like if you need, say your design uses 10 2N 222 double two transistors or something like that, and then you need one diode in your design, it's actually better to wire one of those transistors as a diode to, so you don't have to buy a whole reel of diodes, 5,000 diodes on a reel, and then take up another slot in your SMD, in the SMD machine, because if you've got 30 different parts, then you need a machine that has 30 different reels on the SMD line to manufacture it efficiently. So, there's all these trade-offs which flow down there, and BOM optimization is just going around. And as you say, if you've got a 5K, you need a 5K resistor, but you use, 110Ks in your design, it's just much easier to put those two 10Ks in parallel.
Yeah.
So...
Yeah, and it's amazing too about the you talked about like having a fab, and I don't think a lot of hobbyists out there would have their own kind of fabrication facilities, but you're probably making lower volume kind of things, and you need to have all these parts, and you think about, so like pretend now that you're a hobbyist and you say, okay, I've got this great product and I want to try and sell it. Well, that's great, but if you want to sell 100 of them and each one costs $100 and costs you $100 to make, then this $10,000 you got to plop down on the table just to get your money, just to get your product out the door. And how do you do that? And then if you start cutting down to, I've only built 5 boards, well, then you have to deal with delays, and maybe more people want them. So it's really an interesting trade-off of I'm not on the business side of things that much, but that kind of stuff is a big deal.
Yeah, well, I've done my own kits before. I've sold kits, and I'm thinking about getting it back into it. As I said, I've got this new design which hopefully will come out. It'll be open source, and I think I can sell many thousands of these. And
if only you had some kind of forum to sell these from.
If only I had some sort of forum and ready market to there you go.
We'll figure it out. Don't worry.
Yeah, I've only got 5,000 viewers on the EEV blog, so there you go.
All right, that's good. Yeah, it's amazing watching like the Spark. I was watching the numbers and like the Spark Funds and the Adafruits and all those guys. Their sales are going through the roof, and you think I know that college campuses are getting these kind of kits now too, and it's just like some of these are very viable businesses. People are making a living at it, and it's awesome.
Well, Spark Fund are pulling in. I saw there's a sort of a short doco thing on Adafruit's website. How now all of these startup open source hardware companies and Spark Fund I think are pulling in over $10 million a year now. It's unbelievable.
That's a lot of dollars,
actually. And Adafruit's almost $1 million a year now.
Wow!
Just a 2-person business out of out of a rented shop in somewhere. It's just $1 million just selling little open source hobbyist boards. And there's all these other examples. There's about a dozen companies that have broken this $1 million mark just selling open source hobby kits.
Yeah. But it's not easy. I don't think it's easy. I think that's an important thing to point out, that it's like, whoa, they are moving a lot of product, and they're working their butt. I'm sure you know about that too. They're just probably working their butts off to get this out.
Yeah, it's all about volume and
Oof. No thanks.
Yeah, there's nothing worse than I've shipped some, like my my scientific calculator watch. I sold hundreds of those, and just packing and shipping them, and it's just it's really quite frustrating. So anyway, I'm a glutton for punishment, so I'm going to go back into that sort of market. I think I've got a little winning product which I might bring back to market, and we'll see what happens. But anyone out there can actually give it a go. They can, if they come up with a good idea for a good product, they could sell 1,000, 10,000 of them.
Yeah.
It's not that hard at all, but it does require a good product, a good idea, lots of luck, being first, and things like that. And
a thing to point out is to definitely not go to those people that say, "Hey, do you have an idea? Come to us and we'll sell it for you." Those people are not your friends. Do not go to them.
I don't know if you have that in the US, but a couple of years back here in here in Sydney, on the radio, all the time you'd have these ads, if you've got an invention, come to us and we'll, invent help. We'll, market your invention and, give me a break. All they do is make you sign up for ridiculous, expensive patents and they take a huge cut out of it and slap you on the back and take your money and off you go.
Yep, exactly.
And,
so just a caution now to people out there, don't well, first off, if you have a really good idea, don't give it away. And second off, don't trust people. If someone's asking for your money and they're not actually going to give you something in return, like an awesome kit in the near future, like Dave might, be sure to be wary.
Oh, absolutely. Just go in and do it yourself. I mean, these days you can actually manufacture, just 50 up front or something like that. It's it's surprisingly inexpensive to actually get a kit. But, obviously if your kit of parts, each one costs $100, as you said before, then that's, that requires significant outlay. But my new kit is like, $15 in parts or even, $10 in volume and things like that. So, it's not that. So I can go out and, I can put the money up and get a couple of hundred manufactured up front with very little risk.
Well, that's good. Yeah. I was wondering about the. Have you heard about like the local kind of movement and how? I mean, that's kind of feeds into it. Like, I know a lot of people are talking about. Well, everything's so available these days, and eventually it'll move to the point where everything will be manufactured locally. What do you think about that? Do you think that'll ever happen? I don't know.
Oh, manufactured locally? No, that's that's a pipe dream. China, you still can't beat China for price and things like that. R&D, yes, and small scale production, yeah. Like my previous kits, I've actually had them hand built here in Australia. A guy hand solders them. I didn't bother with getting reels of components and mass assembling, so I used a guy. He works reasonably cheap and hand solders them, and so you can do that. But ultimately, once you go to volume and things like that, it's impossible to beat China, unfortunately, and then there's India up and coming, which will be the next China, and so on and so forth. And
it's amazing too, because the Chinas, the people in China are actually doing the same thing. They're actually hand soldering. It's just the labor costs are so low and they're so efficient at it that it pushes right through. It's sad, but that's just kind of how it is right now, unfortunately.
Yeah, that's just the way it is. Yeah, there are still a lot of products out there that's still, hand assembled, surprisingly, but they are now getting, good boards that are well designed will be mass assembled by machine and those sort of things. So they're just so I've been over there and been to their factories, and they're just. They're just so efficient, and it's just and the parts, of course, they've got the ready-made grey market over there. So if your design uses generic parts, then there's one famous supplier of blank PCBs who will actually give you free parts.
Really?
If you've got they will. I can't remember their name off the top of my head. I'm sure it'll come to me, but if you actually buy a bare board from them, get a board manufactured, they will give you free connectors, free resistors. I think there's a couple of ICs they'll give you for free, and they'll effectively give you all the parts, and they'll assemble it for free as well.
Whoa!
So which is crazy. I can't believe I can't remember their name, but
that's
anyway.
Okay. That's free. That's free advertising they don't need, I'm sure.
Yeah, that's
They're
free
advertising. Stuff away for
free. Yeah, but I've gone to them for quotes, and they're not. Yeah, they it's okay for like a one-off or something like that. But if you try and get 100 made from them, they're not particularly cheap, and in some cases they did an itemised BOM for me of cost of my parts, and some of them were more expensive than DigiKey. It was crazy. I'm like, what?
Wow.
You're obviously, some parts were, free, they were dirt cheap, but others, God knows what markup they were making on them, because I can get them cheaper from DigiKey or Farnell's here in Australia. It was crazy. So
I was going to ask you about that. Is there like a big discrepancy? I mean, I don't know how much exposure you had to the Australia market versus the U.S. market. I didn't really know how much the difference is there. You got the DigiKeys there and the Mausers, but are there suppliers there that U.S. people wouldn't know about? I don't even know.
No, Farnell and RS are the two big ones here in Australia. There's a few others, but they just, they're really just small-time players. Farnell and RS are the two big, which everyone's heard of. RS is a UK company, and Farnell's a UK. They're both UK companies, actually.
Oh, yeah.
They're the two big ones here, and their prices used to be astronomical compared to Mouser and DigiKey, but now there's so much competition. Farnell's now actually, I believe in Singapore, I think it is, they've got a whole team of people at Farnell's working on going through the DigiKey catalogue and matching price on all their products. So they're slowly doing it. So all of these components on Farnell's, you'll see that are actually coming through. They'll actually match DigiKey price, and they'll do it live. So they'll, if DigiKey change their price, Farnell will change their price, and that's what they're actually trying to do. And then RS are trying to now compete with, because Farnell did that, RS are competing with them, and now Farnell offer free delivery in Australia for any volume, any cost. So you can order one single 1 cent part, and they'll courier it to your door for free. And
so you just do that for fun to mess with them, huh? You just
I just do that for fun, yeah.
Tip the delivery guy.
I actually tweeted. Yes, I actually tweeted that the other day that Farnell didn't ship me my part, and I went feral on them, and they actually went crazy. It went all the way to Farnell UK, to top management over there, and they phoned somebody here at 10 o'clock at night saying Dave Jones wants his part in the morning, and sure enough, I had it.
He's got a show. Watch out, he's got a show.
Yes, I've got an audience. And so they really fixed that quick smart, and there was a problem with their system. They couldn't. I paid by credit card, and they couldn't deliver because my company hadn't paid the account for that month or something, so they shut us out. And
now, didn't you say that RS is the ones that didn't they just start that new Design Spark? Was that the one you talked?
Started Design Spark. Yeah, if you haven't heard of it, RS Design Spark. .com or whatever, just Google it, and they've got free PCB design software now, which is competing with Eagle,
and that's online too, isn't it?
Yes, it's
like an online design tool, I think.
No, it's downloadable. They might. I don't know if they have an online version. It's download, but you've got to sign up. You've got to sign up to their website to get it for free or something. So they want that database of people. That's the trap. You've got to.
Of course.
Yeah, you got to sign up to their website, and then they'll give you the license to use the software for free. And it's and it's not, and there's no limits to it. There's no limit to the size of the board or number of components, I believe, as opposed to Eagle, which is. Eagle's, the de facto standard in the open source hardware industry, because they've had a free version available for a long time, but it's limited in size, one schematic sheet, tiny, a small size of the board, double-sided. And, new RS Design Spark software, there's no limits. So hopefully that will push Farnell's, who now own Eagle, because Farnell bought out Eagle, which I think is a German company.
That's right,
and and hopefully that will push them to up their free version. So, I don't think RS Design Spark really stands a chance of unseating Eagle.
Neither Google nor Eagle.
No. I don't think they stand a chance of unseating them from that de facto standard position. Everyone's just so entrenched with Eagle as far as the hobbyist, open source market goes. But, it could spur them on to hopefully give everyone a better version for free. So only good can come from this, I guess.
Yeah, and I saw on I was on Design Spark the other day. I hadn't really heard of it much, but I think it just started back in March or something like that. But I saw they're actually looking for bloggers right now, and I'm always looking for new people to read, stuff that people are writing. So maybe people out there want to start blogging for them or blogging for themselves too, and I'll read anything really. So.
I'm actually constantly approached by with the high profile of my blog now. I'm actually approached by the likes of Design. I won't name names, but the likes of these companies that have all these online communities and things like that, and they're looking for content. They're fishing around for content. So, yeah, they're all contacting me. Hey, can you write for us, et cetera, et cetera. And, well, I won't go into the details, but, they're, yes, they are fishing around for content. So anyone who wants an audience, I'm not sure how large it really is, with those websites, Farnell's Element 14 and...
Yeah. It doesn't really matter for me. I just want to see more people out there writing about stuff. And don't get me wrong, there's a lot of people out there writing about it. I love it. I mean, the people that I read, I read the, even the places that, the Make magazines are pulling, the Make blog that's pulling from, and, the Adafruit blog's pulling from. There's just all the blogs out there are pulling from. I love reading that stuff. So, if you're out there and you're listening and you have an inkling to write, shoot me an email, shoot Dave an email, let us know about it. If we do another radio show, we could talk about it. That was another thing that I wanted to do, is highlight awesome writing out there, awesome projects that are out there.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've got no problems. We can give a shout out to new people out there who are starting up. They've got a new blog or something like that. By all means. As long as it's not a video blog, because I don't want any competition.
Oh, right.
There. Thank you very much. I've cornered that engineering video blog market, and
I don't want to name names, but I've heard of some other ones. So I don't want to name names. So
there are a couple out there who try and compete, but I'm number one. Thank you very much. No contest.
No tooting of horns around here.
No tooting of horns, and yes, I don't have tickets on myself. No, but but that's the thing. I started out with, I didn't think anyone would listen to me. Watch me, sorry. And, I started out, I just put it on the Oz Electronics forum, uploaded to YouTube, and 10 people watched it. Oh, yeah, great. I got 10 people. Woohoo. And I thought, I'd be stoked if I had 100 people. But, now I've got 5,000 regular viewers, but it doesn't come instantly. If you're a new blogger out there and you start up, you've just got to stick to it. You've just got to work at it, and because audiences don't just come, overnight like that.
I always hated that term. I hate the term blogger. I really do. I avoid it at all costs. I say writer. Yes. I don't know about you, but you can't. I guess you'd be videographer.
Well, it's vlogger, which I hate.
That's even
not
worse.
Not blogger, it's video. Yes, vlogger. I really hate that term. Blogger's not too bad because it is a buzzword and everyone knows it. So you get a bit more credibility if you're these days, if you're a blogger, I guess. As opposed to a writer, it's a bit old-fashioned. But yeah, I can definitely see where you're coming from there.
Yeah. Well, hopefully we'll see some people stepping into the spotlight soon enough and pushing us out. That'd be great. That's what I'm looking for.
Yeah, absolutely. So have you got anything else you want to throw into the hat on this episode? How long we've been going for? There you go. It's been going for an hour already.
Yeah, it's good timing. I don't know. Maybe we should just cut it off here and save the rest for next time. I don't know.
Yep, we probably should, I think, because probably an hour show is, good enough. I don't think we can do much we can do a lot in half hour, but I anticipate the shows would probably be an hour each. So,
yeah, and plus you got to get to work, so...
Well, exactly, yeah, I've got to get to work soon, so, I do have to pay the bills, and, all right, well, let's call it quits, and that's our first show, which without a name, the No Name Electronics Show. So if you've got good ideas for the name, please jump on the EEV blog forum, and I'll set up a separate area on there where people can talk about the show, and if people like it and it's successful, we'll get a name for it, a website, its own dedicated iTunes and podcast, and we'll go from there.
And even if people don't like it and it's successful, then we'll, if people just want to rail against it, that's good too,
Well, even if people don't like it, we might just still do it because, it's fun for us.
Yeah, we get to piss people off,
Yeah, we're certainly not going to make any money from it, so, it's all done for the love of it.
That's right.
So,
yeah.
Absolutely. Well, thanks, Chris. It's been
all right,
good.
Thanks, Dave. Yeah, it's
and
fun
we'll
talking.
and we'll catch everyone next time. See ya.
Bye-bye.